digital. Again, this is Julie Havener, Product Manager for Condensed Units. I've met a lot of you at the PMM meetings, so it's good to speak with you all again. Something that actually, Ray Long had actually approached me at the PMM meetings about some sort of abbreviated contractor sheet that all of you could put on your counters in your branches to help contractors understand this AWEF regulation for walk-ins. So what we've done is I've taken an extremely complicated regulation and I have tried to simplify it as much as possible while still giving the contractors the key items they really need to pay attention to. So I tried to think through, what do these guys need to care about? What should they care about? And what should they think about? So this is now available. Julie's going to send it out after this WebEx so you guys can print them for your branches or however you want to distribute this. But essentially, it is just a one-page front back. It has the key dates on it. It has the 4 key facts that I felt, and I got some other folks to review this to make sure I wasn't off base here, but what we thought were the most important facts that the contractor needs to understand out of all these different documents that are out there. And then what are the things they need to have in front of them when they come to your branches and ask for an AWEF approved unit, you know, that they need to understand the application, the location, and the refrigerant. So just try to take all of this information, consolidate it in a very simple format. On the back are just very simple information, a QR code that links to our regulation website so that they do want to go out and read more details behind the regulation, that takes them there. And then the other QR code takes them to our AWF catalog. So just some quick references for them that would be available for their viewing pleasure. So that will be available. Julie will send that out. I just wanted to make sure that we got that out to everybody so that you have that at your disposal. Okay, so for Digital X-Line, you know, we talked back in February, whether it was in Phoenix or in Tampa, that Digital X-Line was coming. We have officially launched as of last week, so we are on schedule. So today, Scott and I are just going to kind of review a few of the things, you know, for those of you that did attend the PMM meetings, some of this will be a little repetitive, but we wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on where we're at, what the offering looks like, and where all the information is. So we just want to take the time to walk through that. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but just kind of a refresher for everybody on X-Line series, the fixed capacity. So the digital will be in the same chassis as the fixed speed. Obviously, all these additional benefits and features that we have on the fixed speed will also be in the digital because it's the same footprint. So all the electronic controls, diagnostics, communication capabilities, lightweight, slim design, flexible mounting, variable speed fans, the large corrosive coil, corrosive resistant coil, quiet operation, and multi-refrigerant. So I just want to make sure we kind of re-ground everybody on the benefits of X-Line. And then we kind of step into the digital modulation. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time, you know, walking back through how digital works because I heard Ed Steffens talk about digital last week. I believe that Tim Uterman also gave a training on digital compression technology last week. So we got a lot of folks talking about digital, which is awesome. Also, there's a QR code in this presentation that will take you directly to a video of and explaining how digital compression works. So it's not an X-Line video, it's actually a scroll digital compression video, just to help you understand the basics and how it functions and works in the system. So to kind of highlight how it works within the X-Line, the X-Line obviously contains our XCM25D controller. It's the same controller that's in our fixed speed as well. And you will go in, if you set up one of these X-Lines, the only difference between a fixed speed and a digital is that you'll set a suction pressure versus a cut in, cut out. That X-Line controller is going to monitor the suction pressures coming back from all these different evaporators, all these different refrigeration loads that it's tied to. And it's going to either load or unload based upon in every 20-second intervals to try to match that load. So for the example we have here, if you need 40% capacity, the controller is going to send a signal to the solenoid valve to either energize or de-energize. So in this scenario, we're going to fully load for 8 seconds and fully unload for 12 seconds. So that will meet that 40% capacity need. Applications. So where we see this a great fit, we've been talking to several end users and just trying to understand their pain points, and you know, we've talked to a lot of you, a lot of contractors on, you know, where do we feel this digital X-Line can fit into the portfolio. This really has a place in whether it's convenience stores, restaurants, supermarkets, or industrial. So let's say like process chillers, things like that. Scott Avini is going to touch base on the Fieldset site that we discussed at PMMs, but just kind of updating you on the progress of that. It's tied into coolers, some display type cases, and food preparation areas. So whether it's some reach-ins or prep rooms, meat lockers, things like that, these really can tie into any of those different applications. So from a high level, what are the benefits of digital? You can kind of see here, I have some mocked up pictures of where there's digital tied into multiple cases or a digital tied into multiple walk-ins. It can be a very complex setup, like we'll talk about at Smith & Wollensky's, or it can be a very simple setup where you have one digital X-Line tied to 2 or 3 walk-in coolers. Really, there is a pretty large range of simplicity to complexity that you can tie this system into based upon your contractor's experience level. So it is a very simple, reliable solution. We understand digital and how it works. It's been used in, you know, supermarket racks for years, so we know the technology is solid. Fewer condensing units to install and maintain. On the Smith & Wollensky site, you know, we reduced the line sets and the refrigerant charge by up to 50% because of the fewer condensing units that it was required to run the facility. So huge savings on an upfront cost perspective. Simple and quick commissioning. As I mentioned, only 3 set points. So just like a standard X-Line, you're going to set a time clock and a refrigerant, and then you're going to just set that suction pressure, and that's it, and you're up and running. So very simple, easy commissioning. No special training required. I know some people are pretty intimidated by things like variable speed. While it has its benefits for sure, it is a little more complex to implement, but digital takes no special training, just understanding that suction pressure and setting that. Slim profile, obviously can fit in tight spaces, lightweight. You know, nowadays, maybe in New York City, getting a crane to put something on a roof might not be as big of a deal since there's no one out. But on your average day, obviously shutting down a street to put condensing units on a rooftop is a really big deal. So lightweight and not having to use things like cranes or large equipment is a huge savings for an end user. Flexible mounting locations, very quiet operation, and obviously it does contain that digital scroll that we've been talking about. Energy efficiency, diagnostics, preventative maintenance, and communication capabilities. So Scott's going to talk about how, you know, what we have the digital X-Line tied into at the Smith & Wollensky site, and talk through the advantages of that as well. Okay, so from a lineup standpoint, we're looking at 3 to 6 horsepower. All of these have been launched, and they are available. So you'll see up in the right-hand corner, all the pricing's been loaded. I believe you should have received a price sheet. If not, let us know. The models are in the portal. They can be ordered. We are receiving POs, so that's great. Performance sheets are all available in OPI, so all the technical information is available, and we are starting to build. So obviously, there's always some wrenches involved here with the COVID-19 situation. So there's always a possibility that something could be interrupted. But right now, we are up and running, and they are starting to build these units for stocking and mount comfort, and as well as to fulfill the first POs we've received. So please submit your POs to your stocking orders. Obviously, we will fulfill them based upon order received. So you'll want to make sure you get those in line. But you see the offering here, 3-phase offering for 3, 4, 5, and 6 horsepower, and then a single-phase offering for the 3 and the 5. That's based on compressor availability. So that's why the single-phase is a little more limited offering than the 3-phase. Down here at the bottom is a nice sheet that you can refer to. This is also on the back of, I'm going to show marketing literature next. Our product slick has this chart on the back of it just for reference to help give everyone a visual on the capacity range that these units can cover. So the dark green is your 50% to 100% capacity. That's really where obviously most people are going to be sizing these units. We don't want these things to be completely oversized or the digital is not going to work appropriately. But the light green area is your 20% up to 49%. So it's just showing the bandwidth it has to run from 20 all the way up to 100, but you can see the dark green is obviously where it's more of the sweet spot. From a literature perspective, I just mentioned that product slick. On the back side of the product slick is that little chart that I just showed you. So that's available. It just gives a nice overview of what the digital offering is. This is an article just talking about the benefits of digital compression in the unit. And then we actually have this brochure that's kind of a pan cold chain. So it's going to talk about all of our different walk-in solutions. It'll highlight scroll, it'll highlight our condensed units, fixed and digital. It talks about Dixel controllers in there. It talks about Site Supervisor. It talks about all of the different offerings we have from an Emerson solution perspective for the walk-in market. Obviously, digital is beyond just walk-in, but this particular brochure is focused around walk-in applications.
Julie, we did have a question that came in on the chat, and either you or maybe Scott can chime in to expand on multiplexing. And I can, Robert, let me just unmute you, the gentleman that asked the question, Robert Murray. You're unmuted, sir, if you'd like to expand on what you mean by that, or maybe Scott or Julie can just speak a little bit to multiplexing.
Sure. What's the question, Robert?
All right. When I think of multiplexing, I think of multiple rooms at different set points. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
No, it would be multiple evaporators on a single suction pressure set point.
Single set points. Okay.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. That kind of answers my question.
Okay.
But Scott, you can run different applications at different temperatures on the one digital, correct?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So for example, if you could set a 50-pound suction pressure set point, and you would have a 30-pound deadband, so plus or minus 15 both ways. So you could have, a walk-in box that's holding one temp, and then some under-the-counter equipment that's maybe a couple degrees different. It is capable of that, but it does only look at one suction pressure set point.
Okay.
And that determines, like Julie said, where that the percentage of capacity that unit will run to maintain that suction pressure set point and keep it as smooth as possible.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
We had another question that came in. Can you upgrade a fixed X-line to a digital X-line? So I assume what they're asking is, can you replace a fixed speed compressor in an existing X-line with a digital compressor in that same X-line?
Take a fixed scroll out of an existing X-line, put a digital in?
I believe
replacing a fixed X-line with a digital X-line.
Trevor, you're unmuted if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, so if you have a failed fixed compressor of an X-line, could you put the digital equivalent in it? Or do you have to upgrade the controller and a bunch of other things?
The controller is actually the same, and it's always had the ability to control digital. We just never turned it on until now. I think that's a question we'd have to ask engineering, though.
Okay, thanks. That's good.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Yeah, 'cause I would
another
say,
question.
I believe there's, just real quickly,
Go ahead.
I believe there's a new program that has some of these new set points in it. So I don't believe the old X lines would have the ability to just automatically run a digital. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, it is the same controller. I always
It's the
thought
same
that we just-
controller.
yeah.
I think it
Okay.
has a different controller program in it.
Yeah, they turn on the digital,
Yeah.
the ability to control the solenoid, right?
So one other question that came in, just validating, you would still need EPR valves on the EVAPs if you are multiplexing. Is that correct?
It would depend. It's contractor's choice. Some guys have used it. I've done 2 test sites. We're going to look at one at Smith & Wolenski. They did use an EPR valve on this job, but on the second site, it was a much simpler job. It was just 2 walk-in boxes on a 3-horse. No EPR valves, but they did use an MOP expansion valve. So, contractor's choice.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. And keep sending questions. That's great. We do have a landing page here, and as we continue to develop marketing materials, those will all be loaded out here, and we'll get them out into your hands. But I just want to make sure everyone understood that we have the site and it's up and live and running. And coming soon, so from a wholesaler perspective, we are working on a pull-up banner to focus on digital X line, so that should be available soon. We're also working on potential wholesaler programs, product displays, and a contractor product spotlight are all in the works. So those should be coming out shortly. The Smith & Wolenski site that we're going to talk about today, we are developing or have developed a QBR around that to just help explain, you know, the benefits and what the challenges were with that site and what we did with it. So that's in its final stages of being developed. There is a blog coming out soon. There's a lot of social media posts out there, so if you see them, please share with your customers. And then an email campaign will go out today. There's a customized email that will come to you guys as the wholesalers. There's also emails that will go to contractors and end users, kind of just targeted to your pain points and your challenges. But please share with your customers if just in case they aren't on our email distribution list, but we're trying to get the word out there that these are launched and ready to go, and explain the overall benefits of the product. Any questions at this point? Any additional questions? Okay, so I'm going to have Scott now touch upon, kind of update us on the Fieldset site and what we've done there.
Okay, thanks, Julie. So before we launched, obviously we needed some test sites. So I was able to get one in Manhattan at Smith & Wolenski Steakhouse. It's on 3rd Ave. Very, very busy place. So I reached out to a contractor of ours, a longtime X-Line supporter, and within a week he said, "Boy, I've got a good one. It's going to be challenging, but it would really show the advantages of digital." So it's an older building. Julie's got some pain points here. You know, it's the architecture's aging. It did need an upgrade. It was running off a variety of different water-cooled units. They were using a tremendous amount of water at the restaurant, and they did not want indoor air cooled, obviously, because there was so much heat in the kitchen area already. So what we were able to do was we replaced about 8 different water-cooled units with a single 6-horsepower digital unit, which we put up top. We had enough space to do that, along with 3 other fixed X-Line units. Next slide. So the one digital, the XFA M060D, is taking care of 8 different evaporators. He's got some under-counter cases, a meat aging box where they age all the prime beef, prep room, a medium temp walk-in box, and a couple of reach-ins as well. So we started this up, I would probably say about 2 months ago, later in January. And, yeah, I mean, right off the bat, this thing really performed flawlessly. So the contractor was very, very happy. He had been looking for this digital capacity control for a long time out of the X-Line unit because he does a lot of jobs like this. So he was the perfect guy to test it with. He did a great installation. And obviously, we saw a significant reduction in water usage. We're going to try and find out, what the cost savings was on that. We already know a little bit of the energy savings. We estimate, early on, we've only been running 2 months, that the restaurant will save probably about $7,300 a year, kWh cost in Manhattan, which is huge. We eliminated those units from the hallway. It's much easier for the workers to get around now. Julie had mentioned reduced refrigerant charge. It's interesting because this, the charge for what the X-Line is taking care of now was over 100 pounds prior. And after the X-Line unit was installed and Richie charged it up, it was less than 50 pounds of refrigerant. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well. Obviously, one of the benefits of digital is we can really match the load precisely based on that suction pressure set point that we talked about a few minutes ago. All right, and we have 20% capacity all the way through 100, depending on where we need to be to maintain that set point. So we've got great humidity control. I had hoped to show you guys some visibility of the site. We have a product called Site Supervisor that's out there. Our solutions guys sell it. We put one on the job to be able to monitor and look at some data. And like Julie said when we started, there's a little bit of difficulties with the WebEx. So we'll probably schedule another WebEx where we'll look at that. But the suction pressures have been really tight. Box temperature is consistent. Next slide, please. And this just shows there are different ways to use X-Line for remote communications. I think more and more of you are probably getting requests from the smaller to mid-sized contractor who wants to be able to look at a job site or look at his X-Line condensing units and see how they're performing or see a fault code and be able to do it remotely from a device or from his office. So we can actually, there's 3 different options available through Emerson, 3 different platforms for communications that will talk to the X-Line units. The XWeb, the Dixel product, the Site Supervisor, which is what we have at the test site. And you can also use E2, the E2 controllers. So very flexible in what different ways to go remotely. I have a contractor who uses both Dixel XWeb and Site Supervisor. It depends on what he wants to do at the job site, what his customer is looking for. So it is nice to have those options. Please keep that in mind. Next slide.
Scott, I think that might be the last slide. We did have one other question that came in.
Okay.
Actually, this is from Mike Young, our very own Mike Young. I'm going to unmute him so he can chime in. But how long does it take to pump down since the digital is unloading capacity as the pressure falls, assuming all zones have closed solenoids? Any special routines or allowances? So Mike Young, you are unmuted if you'd like to chime in on that as well.
No, that's pretty much the question.
Okay. Basically, it doesn't really ever pump down. This one's been pretty much running. There's always a load on it. If anything, it just shuts off. It shuts itself off. He really doesn't have a pump down cycle.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to build upon what Scott mentioned on the connectivity, we can actually tie an X-Line to other building management systems. So if a customer already has another platform installed, obviously we would encourage an Emerson platform, but we do have the ability to tie the X-Line into other management systems as well. It just takes a little more work since it's not pre-programmed, not being an Emerson platform, but I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, and that was the last slide. So I know that was a very short overview, but you know, with the short limited time we have, we thought we wanted to hit on the high points here. Are there any other questions that we can answer today? Obviously,
yeah, I'm gonna unmute everyone here, and we'll see what we get if there's any other questions that come up. So everyone is muted, and I'm gonna try and
I didn't know there was restrictions.
Hey,
I
want to
chime in for a little bit, real quick. I think the reason why we don't have pump down on this is because of medium temp. So a lot of the evaporators would be going into air defrost most likely. So.
Correct. Thanks, Eddie.
Any other questions out there?
Hey, Julie, here, I have a question. So, Julie, I owe you an email response, and I'll get to that, I promise. But the question is, like a premium for the price difference, digital versus traditional X-Line.
Are you asking about the pricing, the price difference between the digital and the standard?
Okay.
Yeah, the pricing has been published. Sorry, we're getting so much feedback. It's hard to hear.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback. It's really hard to. I'm trying to mute the people that are making some noise here. It's a little bit better. Mike Nolly, can you repeat your question?
I'm curious if there is a sort of a premium percentage to, you know, for the digital versus the X-Line. I mean, how much of an upcharge are we looking at here to go to digital?
Yeah, you know, there is a premium to it. It's not necessarily a standard percentage increase. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put together, I'll put together kind of a side-by-side comparison and send it out. I'm hesitant to kind of speak to that without having the numbers in front of me, but there is a premium over it. I mean, you are, you know, you can replace multiple units with one, so you are going to have to do probably a little bit of value selling, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So then my other question is there a chance that down the road this is going to become a standard product rather than folks manufacturing both versions of this unit?
So, I mean, I can speak to that too, Julie. I think that they're going to complement one another because, there may be situations where previously you would have installed 2 standard X-Lines and now you're going to do a digital. That's possible. But you saw in the Smith & Wollensky, you know, we kind of paired a digital with 3 other fixed speed units. And I'm seeing that a lot where it kind of complements one another. By no means do I foresee we're just going to get rid of fixed, because some applications you need to have that single evaporator tie, right? Not everything can go to digital. So I don't foresee that going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
We have one other question that, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's so many different spots that once you start to talk to your customers about what the unit can do, you know, they're going to tell you applications, you know, that they've got in mind. So I don't think you're going to, you know, necessarily have to sell it on price, Mike. I think it's going to solve a lot of problems. It's going to make some jobs that weren't possible. I mean, I've had supermarket guys say to me, "You've got a little rack there. If I add some cases to a store,
Jeff,
I could do this."